Good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Trucking Market Update podcast. I'm your host, Driven, and on this show, I dive into the markets to keep you truck drivers, you owner operators, up to date so you can best position your truck to make the most money. Now, I'll be using the DAT load board, and I appreciate them sponsoring this video. And in return, they've provided you with the link down in the description box for 10% off for your first 12 months, so check it out. Now, stick around. I got a dad joke to tell, and then we'll dive right in.
Rolling down the highway, sun just breaking through. Radio's playing loud, the show's for me and you. Learn how to book your loads and make that money flow. Keep the shiny side up wherever we go.
Now, all that I ask for the little chuckle, or maybe not, is to hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing if you get some value from this, or maybe just a laugh.
Good morning. Getting my truck refueling in. How about you? Let's dive in. Let's get to that dad joke today. Why did Beethoven get rid of his chickens? All they said was bok, bok, bok. Oh, man. Yeah. All right, let's get into the weather today. So there's that storm up there in the northwest, dumping a lot of snow. Hope you guys are safe up there. If you are up there, keep an eye on that weather. Stretching from Wyoming, looks like over even in Utah, up there on, what is that? Is that Soldier Mountain? I can't tell if that's south enough for Soldier. Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, everywhere up there is getting snow today. Is Colorado? Yeah, Colorado as well. So be careful. It's that time. If you don't have you should already be required to have your chains on your trucks. So hopefully you've got those on there just in case. Those are not to push yourself. Those are just in case measures. Never like throwing iron. Looking around the rest of the United States, everything else looks fine. A little bit of rain down there in Southern California, not much to speak of. Over there in New Mexico. Wow. Okay. So later on in the day. So that storm is going to move pretty quickly southeast. So if you are southeast of that region, be careful, especially Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. You're going to get hit pretty hard today. Where is it moving? It's going to move across the Dakotas. We don't see any snow yet. Maybe tomorrow. Nope. But it does look like it's going to get severe. This red wasn't showing up yesterday, but that's a couple days away. Things change, right? Most importantly, today and tomorrow, probably fairly accurate. So pretty heavy snow with that storm moving southeast. And then as far as the rest of the country goes, it's going to be windy in, Kansas, Nebraska, southern Nebraska, and even the tip of the panhandle of Texas and the panhandle of Oklahoma. So be careful up there. Yeah. And that's about it. All right. So moving into the trucking market update. So I like to start here. This gives us a nice barometer. This tells us what's the truck to load ratio statewide. Okay. You can't just look at this information though. In a few minutes, I'm going to actually dive into the specific markets and let you know where the freight is actually located in those states. Kind of a good example of this would be California. It's going to show to be in really good shape as far as a truck to load ratio. But if you're in the wrong market, then there's not going to be a plethora of freight around and you're not going to make it the most amount of money. So stick around. We're going to dive into the specific markets here in just a few minutes. But let's start with the national load count statewide. So Alabama, 667 loads in to 251 loads out. A little bit of a slide for Alabama. Not looking great. Arkansas, 301 loads in to 326 loads out. Still above that 50-50 mark, but also a bit of a slide as well. So no real negotiating power there. Arizona, 477 loads in to 426 loads out. Still holding on. We've slipped, we're close to that 50-50 mark, but there's never really a ton of negotiating power over there in Arizona. So is what it is. California, 1,649 loads in to 2,863 loads out. So very good shape, an increase in production, and a move towards the favor of the truck driver for negotiations. So try to use it. Colorado, 460 loads in to 178 loads out. So we got a slip for Colorado. Connecticut, 224 loads in, 126 loads out. If they're much smaller states and they're really not worthy of talking about, I'm just going to read them off and I'm going to move on. DC, 22 loads out. That's like triple production for DC. Delaware, 78 loads in to 92 loads out. Florida, 2,930 loads in to 420 loads out. So extremely rough shape. Florida had a ton of trucks headed towards it this week. So that's why we're seeing such low numbers, because there's just not freight sitting around. If you happen to be heading that way, get the heck out. I mean, if you got to go empty, go empty. But it's in really, really bad shape, as is Georgia. 2,311 loads in, 920 loads out. So a slip there. It just doesn't look good down there in that Southeast market. Ever since I've been doing this. 2 months, a little over 2 months, not even sure. Iowa, 309 loads in, 505 loads out. So a move in the right direction. Negotiating power is back in Iowa. Love to see it. Idaho, 92 loads in, 205 loads out. So, with that storm over there, I get it. But it is an increase in production if you're over there in Idaho. Illinois, 893 loads in, 2,235 loads out. That's fantastic for Illinois. That's a pretty significant decrease in loads in, and an increase, I think. Can't remember. But still an excellent number for loads out. So definitely negotiating power over there, especially the way that the Great Lakes states are, the surrounding states are. You got Iowa's in really good shape. You got the Great Lakes states up north. Indiana's right next to it, which sits at 665 loads in to 1,329 loads out. So that's an increase in production in Indiana. So you definitely have negotiating power there in Illinois. Use it. Educate yourself with the right numbers. Talk to these guys. Be friendly, and tell them why they should pay you more money. Don't just tell them what your rate per mile is. You're not going to get any money that way. That's not how people work. You got to use people skills. Sales is a people skills, and make no mistake, you are selling yourself. Kansas, 255 loads in to 365 loads out. So move in the right direction for Kansas. Ooh, sorry about that. Joke myself. Where were we at? Kentucky, 564 loads in to 519 loads out. Kind of a slip for Kentucky. Louisiana, 262 loads in to 216 loads out. So a slip for Louisiana as well. Massachusetts, 388 loads in to 184 loads out. Maryland, 345 loads in to 377 loads out. So a small bump for Maryland, but nothing significant, nothing really to speak of. Doesn't really change the way Maryland's operating this week. Maine, 76 loads in to 72 loads out. Michigan, 495 loads in to 795 loads out. So we're seeing a bit of a bump of trucks headed to Michigan, but the freight is still maintaining. So you still have negotiating power there. We'll see what Ohio looks like. I'm sure it's fine, but yeah, Michigan in good shape. Minnesota, 179 loads in, 610 loads out. So it looks like all the freight left yesterday, but it's still in really good shape, especially for the amount of trucks that are headed that way, especially given how Illinois is looking. We'll see how Wisconsin looks. So that's going to be the determining factor for Minnesota. Missouri, 655 loads in to 668 loads out. So hanging on above that 50-50 mark, really good shape. Mississippi, 270 loads in to 240 loads out. Poor Mississippi. I think if Mississippi wasn't surrounded by such poor production states, it would do really well. But unfortunately, it's not. Montana, 37 loads in to 91 loads out. North Carolina, 1,766 loads in to 688 loads out. So rough. Just rough. North Dakota, 29 loads in, 152 loads out. Really good shape there. You've definitely got the negotiating power up there in North Dakota. Nebraska, 178 loads in to 111 loads out. That's a slip for Nebraska. New Hampshire, 115 loads in to 17 loads out. That's rough. New Jersey, 572 loads in, 1,042 loads out. So Jersey in really good shape. We'll see what Pennsylvania looks like here in a minute. New Mexico, 149 loads in to 75 loads out. It's normal. Nevada, 209 loads in, 444 loads out. Nevada hanging in there, being strong. Love to see it. Good shape. You got negotiating power. New York, 680 loads in to 1,121 loads out. So New York's in good shape as well. It's not great, but the loads in are down and the loads out are they're up, but not a ton. Ohio, 1,060 loads in to 1,754 loads out. Apparently my dog wants to say hi. Ohio in really good shape. Those are just normal numbers for Ohio, but still, even normal Ohio is a good Ohio. So love to see that. That means Michigan, you're going to have negotiating power in Michigan as well. So love to see that. Oklahoma, 378 loads in to 221 loads out. That's not terrible for Oklahoma, I guess. Oregon, 161 loads in, 358 loads out. So you definitely have negotiating power there in Oregon. Use it. Pennsylvania, 1,464 loads in, 1,692 loads out. So that's a slide in the wrong direction for PA, despite being above that 50-50 mark. It's kind of to be expected, though, with the other states that are surrounding. There's not a ton of trucks going into those other states, so they got to be going somewhere, right? Looks like they're going to Pennsylvania. That being said, it's still in good shape. So Ohio is going to be in good shape, which means that the Jersey is going to be in good shape as well. So not a significant decrease for the main factor states surrounding kind of those Great Lakes states, as well as the PA, Jersey area, Ohio area. There is one left. We need to look to see what Wisconsin's doing, but we'll see that in a second. Rhode Island, 48 loads in, 34 loads out. South Carolina, 772 loads in to 396 loads out. That's bad even for South Carolina. South Dakota, 52 loads in, 149 loads out. So South Dakota, that's way above average. You got 3 times the amount of loads that you do to trucks. Normally it's either close to that 50-50 mark or maybe something like 1 to 2 or less. So good shape for South Dakota. Tennessee, 963 loads in, 662 loads out. A bit of a slip for Tennessee, but they kind of suffer the same fate as Mississippi. They're just surrounded by not the greatest of states for freight. Texas, 2,982 loads in, 1,887 loads out. Such a shame. Texas. Utah, 220 loads in to 323 loads out. So that's really good shape for Utah. Interesting, but be safe. They're going to get smoked today, so make sure you keep an eye on that weather. Virginia, 846 loads in to 683 loads out. I think actually that's about the same. It's either about the same as it has been this week, or it's a bit of a slide for Virginia. Vermont, 38 loads in, 34 loads out. Washington, 207 loads in, 560 loads out. So really good shape for Washington as well. So that Northwest looking a bit stronger than what it was last couple of days. It's to be expected, right? With all that snow that you're getting. I know it's probably not the first snow of the year, but it's one of the first few. So I'm sure a lot of drivers are probably not wanting to mess with it just quite yet. But good shape. You got negotiating power there. Oh, Wisconsin, 345 loads in, 1,206 loads out. Excellent shape for Wisconsin. So it's certainly not bringing the other states around it down, which is what I expected. There was a massive shift yesterday, or I wasn't even a shift. It's just been super strong all week. Called it earlier in the week, right? Until a honey hole dries up, keep wearing it out until it proves you wrong. Things will remain the same until they change. So those Great Lakes states should be the focus or the aiming point for later on in the week. Now, as you start to get weather change, right, it's understandable if you don't want to head that way. The only problem with that is that the markets are just rough, right? They're just really, really rough. And there's not a good market outside of the Northwest and the Great Lakes states. I mean, you've got the Midwest market, but the ones that are willing to go up and brave the snows and the colder weathers up there in those Great Lakes states are going to be rewarded. So just keep that in mind. But don't push it too hard. If it scares you, you should probably be parked. All righty. So West Virginia, if I can move it, it's 196 loads in to 225 loads out. That's really good shape for West Virginia. In Wyoming, 50 loads in, 125 loads out. Also really good shape, but I imagine Wyoming is going to be a skating rink today. So Be safe. The trend lines, I cover the trend lines Monday through Wednesday. I do like to show them though. So there they are. You can pause the video if you want. There's the national spot rates. They fluctuate maybe a little bit throughout the week, but it's not really worth stopping when kind of talking about your time. We do have a new weekly brief, so let's read this real quick. Truckload market responds to Hurricane Milton, October 7th through 13th. Truckload rates cooled last week with volumes dropping off due as Hurricane Milton made landfall. We can expect volumes to rise with recovery efforts. So that's good. If volume rises, it means demand rises. That means negotiating power shifts away from brokers and towards truck drivers. So that is good for you. Fuel price is up to $3.63 average across the nation. And here's the heat map. Let's close this little. All right. Red is good, blue is bad, yellow is average. So looking up at the Northwest, both the Seattle markets and the Portland market show to be in good shape. And then the rest of Washington actually is average. Oregon is average, and even the northern half of Idaho is average. Those are all increases. That's why I'm talking about them. Even the rest of Idaho, that's a shift from dark blue to light blue. So all positive. Basically, anything west of Montana, Wyoming, Denver, Albuquerque, Arizona. I just don't like it. I'd love to live there, but I just don't. It's not great for freight. In really, really good shape. You can't go too terribly wrong. California, this is why we go over this, right? The northern portion of California is not in great shape. It's just average. And the San Francisco market is remaining that light pink. But the market that's in between the Sacramento market and the Los Angeles market, it's actually increased to a light pink as well. But majority of the freight is going to be down there in Los Angeles. I apologize. There we go. And then Utah. Utah is not like freight heavy. So when Utah gets an increase of production, it just pretty much is just all an increase. So it doesn't really tell you where the freight's at. Majority of the freight is going to be in Salt Lake City or, what runs north and south? It's not 15. Holy cow. I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, what runs north and south? It's Salt Lake City. You can tell it's been a minute since I've been on the road. That's sad, man. That makes me so sad. Over there in Texas, you've got the Dallas market. It's cooled off just a tad, not necessarily the Dallas market, but the market that's just west of it. So I would say that I don't know. You just don't head to Houston, just don't, or to Texas, just don't. You're just not going to make good money. It's going to be terrible rates. You can have zero negotiating power. It's just not a good idea. But if you are, I guess go to Houston. I don't know. You're rolling the dice either way, whether it's Dallas or Houston, because you're surrounded by bad states. Just no way, no. The Memphis market has seen a bit of an increase, so that's okay. I'm going to say, if you are a snowbird and you want to head from north to south, I would imagine the best market that you could hit, the most southern market, is probably Memphis. That's just, that would be where I would go, I guess, for right now. If I just had to run north and south, or I was trying to dodge a storm or something like that, that's probably where I would head, because anything outside of that is just really not great. It's just not great. I mean, you can see it. The Midwest, so the Kansas City market is still average. The St. Louis market is still average. Now, given the really good shape that Illinois is in, the only market that's shown to be hot is the Chicago market. So that means that the Chicago market is on fire right now. That's a really, really good thing. Over in Indiana, the majority of the freight's in the southern half, but that market that's right there close to Chicago is still showing average. So that's really, really good as well. That means that you don't have a lot of bouncing out of Chicago, or you don't necessarily need to, which is just kind of good for everything around it. So, those are all really good. Ohio, as per usual, the northeastern market is going to have the most freight for Ohio, but the rest of the state is still pretty good. If you're going to go to Ohio, try to go to that northeastern part, or try to stay, as close to Indiana as you can, or as close to Indianapolis as you can. Gives you the most options, right? And that's what we're looking for, is the most options. But the best markets would be up north. And Wisconsin, the freight is going to be up north, or on the eastern half of the state. In Minnesota, I always want to say it. I want to say it because Minneapolis is larger than Minnesota on this map here. Why? I don't know, but it is. Anyway, up there in Minnesota, the Minneapolis market is going to be where all the freight's at. So yeah, not much to say there. And then in Michigan, the western half of the state is hotter than the eastern half. So despite thinking that Detroit might have more freight, it's not the case. The western half does. Over there in PA, you've got the eastern half of the state is the hot market, which is normal, the Philly side. But I will say this, the Pittsburgh side is not below average. Normally it's below average by this time. So that's really good. That speaks good for Ohio. It bleeds over into New York. You can see on the map, you can see how that very tip of New York on the west is like a little bit hotter than usual. And that's because Pennsylvania is hanging on. So this is a perfect example of how certain markets affect the markets around them. You can see it right here. And so that's why when I say, whenever I'm looking at the actual states, this negotiating power in this particular state is affected by the states are surrounding. That's a perfect example right there. Because I guarantee you, if Pennsylvania was blue, then it's highly likely that that western market of New York would be blue. Now, is that western market of New York great? No, but it's just a good example, right? Anyway, moving on. Jersey, it's in the northern half as per usual. And then Maryland, it's over, what is that? It's hard to see. It's over there on that eastern side. And then Delaware, it's Delaware. Like, not great freight coming out of there. Not, you're not going to get super great rates, not a ton of negotiating power. Sun's peeking through, right? So that's it. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. There's a lot going on. My dogs were barking. They're outside mowing. There's just a lot going on. So anyway, I appreciate it if you stuck around this long. Thank you so very much. Consider subscribing, leave a like on the video. If you could, please comment. Commenting is big for the algorithms. It doesn't matter what you say, truly, as long as you just engage, right? If you just leave that comment, it would be greatly appreciated, good or bad, I don't care. Or something that you'd like to see or say or whatever. Put it out there to the world. Outside of that, I don't have anything else. Y'all keep that shiny side up. But as always, stay driven. I'll see you tomorrow.